Good afternoon, evening, or morning, or whatever time it is. I'm starting this one out, this rant, and it's secondary to the one I did last time, which is how do you come by your opinions and your positions? And I cut this. I made a really quick outline of all of this to how do you come by your opinions politically or whatever. And I like in a minute and a half wrote down 10 things and their subsets and so forth. So I could talk like about 10 different things here, and each one of them takes quite a bit. But I started out saying, well, people come by their opinions because of their values and their perspectives and their personality. That was my three primary major sets. And so I talked last time about values and how people develop their values. And the way that they develop their values a lot of times is through their families. That was my last video, talking about my family and how they helped me develop my values a little bit. And the next thing I have down here is religion. How people develop their values because of their religion. And I've had a few discussions with different people about religion. I know in polite society you're not supposed to talk about politics and religion, so these are not very polite. These particular videos are not very polite at all. But there's a friend of ours who insisted that unless we raise our children in a religious environment, that they will have no morals. And they tried to express to me that you can't have morals without religion. You can't have morals without a God to look up to. And I don't know if that's true. There's probably something to do with morals in religion, but frankly, honestly, I don't see that religious people are any more moral than anybody else. They're all the wars and the deceitful actions and the hierarchy of religious organizations, and when they talk about, oh, you drink the Kool-Aid, like a lot of people like to say, oh, he drank the Kool-Aid. People on the right say that, you drank the Kool-Aid. Don't forget where they really drank the Kool-Aid. That was the People's Temple over in Venice. What was that, in northern South America? They brought over all those people who were religious Christian fanatics who followed Jim Jones, and when he told them to drink poison Kool-Aid, they drank it obediently. So don't tell me that everything that is in religion is good and everything that's outside of religion is bad. That doesn't seem to be always the case. Now, I'm not going to argue about God or what religion to believe in, but I do think that your values come from your religion very often, or partially, because I've seen certain types of values that come out of the Catholic religion. For example, I was raised in a Catholic religion. I went to school 8 years to Catholic school, and I went to a Catholic church every day. And my mother was Catholic, and my grandmother was Catholic, and the Catholics tend to be very guilt-oriented. They want you to feel guilty a lot, it seems like. You can't sin, and if you do, you got to feel real guilty about it. But the Catholics are different from the Protestants, in my opinion, in that they seem to appreciate a hierarchy of government and so forth. Now, they believe that the church has a place that can help people in the institution as far as helping them live better and survive and eat and so forth. The Catholic Charities is the largest charitable organization in the entire United States, for example. It even does more to feed people than a lot of the government. But the Protestants tend to have a little bit more of a sense of freedom and against the institutions. And you see this value that interprets into the political world. A lot of the South were Baptists and Protestants. There were less Catholics down south than there were in the north and in New England and so forth. And you'll see that they are very much the sort of people who are anti-government all the time down south. And I think this is a value that they get from their religion, because they have like instead of having a large institution such as a Catholic Church, these Protestant denominations all kind of are decentralized into their little individual churches. And it's been preached by, originally from Luther into Calvin into all these other folks, that the church should be decentralized and you should be able to interpret the Bible or interpret all of the types of beliefs onto yourself, and don't have anybody who is an authority that you would look to interpret things for you. You can interpret everything yourself, even to the point to the Mormons, which is a form of Protestantism, that they say that everybody gets to make up their own religion sort of individually. You're a prophet, and if you're a powerful enough prophet, they're going to write down your current day prophetic pronouncements, and you'll be considered like on the same thing as Isaiah or Ezekiel or one of the guys in the Old Testament. They don't believe that it all ended back then. They believe that the prophets are living on the earth today, so that everybody gets to make up their own sort of new religion as they go along. And this is a tendency that goes away from institutionalism. And it goes, it's funny because a lot of the people who are calling for the, let's get rid of regulations, let's get rid of taxes, let's less government and all that, they call themselves conservatives. That doesn't sound conservative. It sounds anti-conservative. It sounds kind of anarchistic to me. But it comes, I believe, the value of having a irreverence and a contempt for the authority of an institution, I think comes from that religious background of the Protestantism. And you'll see that a lot of the places that are really anti-government are pretty much anti-institutional from way back when. And we can look at some of the other religions too, the Muslims or the Hindus or whatever other religions such as that. The Muslims, they believe in complete devotion and subjugation to God. And I don't know what's going to come out. But one of the things that you see in the Muslim religion as far as values is they disrespect their women, as far as I can tell. They don't think that women are as good as men. So they believe that women must be, it says right in the Quran, I have a copy of the Quran right here, man exceeds woman. And that women don't have the rights that men do in Muslim countries. A man can go around and have multiple wives if he wants. And if a woman is caught committing an adulterous fornication or something like that, she's going to be locked up in her house or stoned to death. And what about the guy who was having the adulterous fornication with the woman? Well, it says, just leave him be. God is merciful. So, in other words, women are treated like dogs in the Muslim religion, as far as I can tell. I never understood why they stand for that. Why wouldn't you want to have the same respect and rights as a man? But, these are the values that come through the religion. And if you go to these Muslim countries where the government runs with Sharia law and all that, you'll see that the women have no rights in those countries. Well, that's the religion. So my point here, I guess I'm making, it's pretty obvious, is that a lot of the values come from religion. But is there an overall larger moral system that's human? That's the question I would like to ask people. I think there is. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't ask it. I think there's a kind of a natural law that is human law. I think people are usually basically kind to each other if they're not starving or something. And I think people are basically non-violent, except if they're like, 18-year-old males, so they're usually kind of violent, but grown-up people are usually more mellow, and I believe that people are generally sexually moral if they're in a situation where they can thrive. I don't think that the sexual morals that we live under are the ones that are necessarily dictated by religion. I think there's a natural sexual morality that exists, and it has to do with the ability to raise your family well. You know, but I know a lot of people disagree with that. We look at one more thing I could say is how these people are always judging other people for their sexual morals. It's kind of interesting. It's like other people judge other people more severely than they judge themselves usually. The guy, there was recently a scandal that went on in politics where a man was not acting sexually correct in videos and so forth. And I am not mention any names because if you wait 3 months, it's going to be a different person. And then there was a guy who was doing homosexual acts who said that he hated homosexuals. And there was another man who was cheating on his wife. And there's always these sexual political things that go on. And they always sort of, the righteous people of the world are always saying how the lack of religion is what's causing that. I don't think that's true. I think these values, these sexual values, for people who are in the public eye, who are political people, are different than the average stay-at-home mom and dad. It's a gypsy lifestyle for a politician. And they go out and they see all kinds of different people more than the average person who lives in a house with their mom, with their husband and wife and kids. These are people who go all over the place and meet all kinds of people. And they're already the outgoing and aggressive type people. So that's why you see so many scandals. And it also may be that maybe that's the way a lot of people are anyway. If you go up and down the street that you live on right now, and just go up and down, and if you had the ability to peek into everybody's house and peek into everyone's life, I don't think that there would be very many people who would be able to stand up and say that they are absolutely moral about this type of stuff. This is sort of an issue that, they try to tell you in religion that you got to be this moral, holy person, but, nobody really is. And just one more in closing, I want to say, even in the Catholic Church, they're very prudish. They tell you got to be chaste and pure and everything in the Catholic Church, and no sex before marriage. And yet these priests are going out and molesting little boys all the time. I mean, it happens a lot. And the reason for that is because in these churches and in the public eye, when we're judging these politicians and most of these religions, sure, you want to be loyal to your spouse, but it's unrealistic to think that people could be chaste and celibate when their entire lives, like the priests are supposed to be. It's kind of almost perverted to think that they ought to be that way. They ought to, not that I care about the Catholic Church that much, but they ought to let the priests get married, I think. You would see a lot less perversion. And asking somebody to squeeze in a square peg into a round hole like that, like what they require the priests of the Catholic Church to do, is really unrealistically, unhumanly possible. That's why you see so much perversion there.